We are here to bring you everything and anything surrounding Porsche. I'm Mike.
I'm Aaron.
And this is PCar Talk.
All right, welcome to an episode of PCar Talk. I'm Mike.
And I'm Aaron.
You know where you're at. We're here. We're in the studio. It's go time. I want to thank JRZ. Suspension's here.
Yep.
Kind of in the car. Not exactly.
Mostly in the car.
Had some snafus with install. Hopefully that's going to get wrapped up this week. I won't get into details and bore you with it. It's just frustrating, and that's what happens when you install stuff sometimes, and that's just part of the deal. We'll leave it at that. Want to thank them for sending the stuff and then getting everything sorted out behind the scenes as well.
Yep.
I saw something interesting. There's JRZ suspension on the Porsche 993 GT1.
Oh, nice.
So the one at Le Mans, there's JRZ suspension on that car.
Way back, like just retrofitted, or?
I don't know the details of it, but I saw pictures of it from last week, and it's got JRZ suspension on it. So I don't know if that happened after, because it's in customer hands now. From a collector, it owns the car currently. They do race the car occasionally at Thermal and other places like that, so it might be an after the fact. But either way, the fact that it's on
suspension.
Well, no, not just for me. I'm talking about people that are listening. If it's good enough for a GT1, it's fucking good enough for your car. So let's put it that way. So
there was already race suspension on there at one point.
Yeah. So big up to JRZ on that. So step up and get on the GT1 level and put JRZs on your car, because that's a pretty hard flex. When I saw those photos of that car because it was at Joey Seeley's shop.
Okay.
And I was seeing some of the pictures that were there, and I was like, those are JRZs on that car.
I recognize those colors.
Holy shit.
Red and blue.
Well, it's not even that. I mean, it was one of the pictures was a close-up picture, and it said JRZ, like, big on the thing, because they were, because it's double wishbones, and they're like F1 suspension in the back, so it's no hiding them. They're just huge, exposed, and I'm like, holy shit, okay. So that car's running JRZ? Okay. So it's the real deal. So, yeah, if I get a GT3, I'm going to put JRZs on it. If I get anything else, I'm going to put JRZs on it. So I'm sure at some point I'm going to probably put JRZs on the 964. So
does it feel like a big body just floating around right now?
Yeah, I mean...
Or does it just feel weird?
It just doesn't...
I just wondered, because
It just doesn't feel trusting. But, yeah. So, enough of that. We have... renewal member Dennis H. Thank you for renewing. He's part of that 100 club. So thank you for that. I already gave Todd M a shout out as a new member before. He already knows.
I was trying to give him extra shout outs here.
But I think the really cool thing is, since we've launched the Patreon thing, we have 3 Sriracha Boy level Patreons that deserve shout outs. Matthew M, Nikki F, and Sean H are all Sriracha Boy levels. For people that are still not paying attention, I know you already went through that.
I'm doing it again.
Go for it. Like, hey, repetition, man. Let's kill these MFers with like info. Get them.
So we got 3 levels, and 3 levels. The first is like the PCar Talk listener. That's $5. That just supports us. You get the happiness of supporting, the warm and fuzzy of that. The second tier is a PCar Talk producer, and so that's at $10 a month. The first tier is at $5. $10 a month, we give you a shout out, we give you a PCar Talk decal, and just enjoy supporting us for $10 a month.
And also, do they get like show credits, like on YouTube when this is in? Do you put them in the link where it says producer? Okay.
Yep.
I just want to get into the details of this, because I know that's a new concept for a lot of people that probably don't listen to podcasts that much. There's a lot of podcasts out there doing stuff like that, where you have helped produce the show essentially with your funding, so your name gets labeled on the show. So
and then the third tier is our Sriracha Boy tier, and so what that tier is, it's just a loyalty based, meaning that you get 4 individual things across a time sensitive drop. So 3 months you get the decal, 6 months you get a t-shirt, 9 months you get a poster, and then 12 months you get the hoodie. And I don't know if you know, but we've never done a hoodie. There's no hoodie in existence for I don't know why we haven't done one, but
that's because we live in Florida, probably. But anyways, that's how you get a hoodie. But so I know it sounds a little confusing, but the Sriracha Boy stuff is its own line, so it's different. You know, it's going to have a Sriracha bottle on it. It's not going to be PCar Top or PCar Club. It's its own club within the club, basically. So it's the extra.
And in the end, with giving that little extra spice at the end, Mike and I decided that at the 12-month run, you get a shot at going to far. And right now, you're going to need every shot you can get because that thing's getting full.
Yeah.
And I didn't tell Mike, but we are down to 3 spots, maybe 2 spots.
Oh, did we have some more people sign up?
Yeah, this morning.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah.
Cool. Yay.
And it's heavy, like you said, it's heavy hitters. And, I mean, I don't think we're really, I mean, you might have a shot.
Well, yeah, no, like, you will have a shot because this year we probably realistically, what is it, June now? Yeah. So when we announced it, I think it was January, wasn't it? Like when we announced it, we probably had 15 or 16 in that first month.
Yep.
And then we kind of trickled like 6 over the last 4 months, essentially, like 6 people signing up. So if it's on that pace again, all of the Sriracha Boy members, they're going to get that hit come January next year. When it happens, they're also going to get that PCar Club invite. So if they're faster than our current members that are, I can't plan that far out, I can't promise that in September, I can't do this, I can't do that. Well, then if you can commit, then you're in. Yeah. So that's another way you can get in. If you're on that outside of 100, if you're in that waiting list right now that's growing, as Aaron indicated earlier, this is your other way. If you want to get on that drive, become a Sriracha Boy member, Patreon, and do that. And then when you get called up to the pros and become a pro, like the PCar Club member, you could either drop the Patreon one if you want and just stick with your club membership, or be a G and do both.
We just want to give you something a little different, something we've never done before. Yeah. As far as like stylist stuff, and it's not going in the store. We don't plan on selling it any time. Like, this is its own.
Yeah. So that stuff Aaron just mentioned.
Yeah.
That stuff.
Poster.
You know, I know people say this crap all the time. Oh, it's never going to be for sale, but it isn't. That stuff is part of that membership giveaway. It'll never be for sale. So even the club members that are been club members from the beginning, they cannot buy Sriracha Boy things unless they become a Sriracha Boy Patreon. So that's another incentive to become that. They will get the decals, meaning, like, when I say they, the 30 that come on the drive, we have decided that you can be an honorary Sriracha Boy, that all you're going to get is the decal, basically. And you can choose to put it on your car or not. It's up to you. But we're not selling those, and we're not giving them away. Those are going to be coveted for that purpose only. So we've been asked many, many times, how do I get one of those? Can I have one of those? That's how you get one. Plain and simple.
True story.
All right. So it's Thursday when you're listening to this. Safari closes out tomorrow on Bring a Trailer at 2 p.m. It's got a lot of traction already. Big shout out to what is the name of that?
Is it Evolution?
Yeah, Auto Evolution. Okay. Sorry. Auto Evolution wrote some mini article highlighting the car, unsolicited.
Some sweet pictures. I love those things.
Yeah, big shout out to them for doing that, and just bringing some light to that. They didn't have to do that. I didn't even know they did that. I actually was searching for Porsche news and highlights, and in my own feed, as I searched, yeah. Well, it's not me. I didn't write it. Like, it's their thing that they wrote it. Yeah. They wrote this little mini article, kind of giving the heads up on it and highlighting the car. And as I saw it, it was one of the headlines on Google, the picture of the car. So I was like, what the hell is this? So I clicked on it and I sent it to Aaron. I'm like, that's pretty rad. Okay, cool.
Is that something they normally do? Like, I don't remember. I don't know the name.
I don't either. So. But I mean, they obviously do automotive stuff. I kind of clicked around on their page. They highlight automotive things that are going on. I would consider them like bloggers, essentially. So they brought some highlight to that, and I appreciate that. There's also on Instagram a really big mountain biking community. They posted it, reposted it on their site, and they got a lot of traction for that. If you threw a
bike up there, you'd probably crush.
Yeah, they were all excited about it. I didn't even know it happened. Somebody forwarded it to me. So there's a lot of traction around this car, and rightfully so. I mean, it is a special car. So if you're interested in bidding or know somebody who's interested in bidding and having a super rare car, auction closes Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern. This is a bad boy. I hate to see it go, but it's got to go so something else can come. So I can't keep everything. Contrary to popular belief, I can't afford to keep everything. I wish I could.
His garage Tetris is pretty serious right now.
Yeah, so I wish it was that way, but it's not. So some things have to leave for other things to come. A lot of you can relate to that who are listening. But again, go ahead and pass the buck and let everybody know that this thing closes Friday at 2 p.m. Let's ring the bell on this thing. Let's set a world record, right? That'd be nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the right car to do it. Honestly, it really is. It's a safari car in itself, but it's a 3.0 Euro Carrera on top of it. So,
which I haven't seen too many of.
Yeah, you mean zero. So, it's the only one. It's safaried. It's a Euro Carrera. So, considering they only made like 1,039 of these things ever, and a good friend of mine, Keith Ennis, came over today and actually. He brokers cars for people, and that he has a person who's very, very interested in bidding on the car. So he came to kind of vet the car, and it passed all of Keith's rigorous test. He drove it, and he loved it. And so we'll see what happens as far as his person who's going to bid on it. And if the guy does, the person who wins it, I don't want to give too much information on this person because they're obviously private for a reason. But if they do win it, they are actually going to use this car in a Cooper Tire rally. I think there's one in Moab that you have to be invited to, and they're invited, so they're thinking about using this car.
So then they're like, well, I got the invite, now I'm gonna get the car.
Yeah, so they're thinking about using this car in that event. So there may be some more spotlight coming for the next owner. So that I think that'd be pretty rad as well. But best of luck to everybody on that. So Porsche news, got a lot of it. Let's start with. Porsche is due to launch a smaller version of the Taycan, essentially to compete with the Model 3 and Audi A4 e-tron that's coming out. But the reports are saying, okay, it's supposed to be smaller, so it's supposed to compete with those cars in that price range, correct? Well, they're saying, not when I say they, I don't mean Porsche, but reports are saying that it's going to be around $80,000 before incentives, where you get the discount and stuff. That's more expensive than a Model 3.
Yeah.
You can get a Model 3 for 50 G's, can't you? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, let us know in the comments. I'm pretty sure.
That's what
if you can get one, I guess. I know there's probably a waiting list, but I'm saying price-wise, that's a large gap there.
Can't we get a rear-wheel drive, Taycan for 80? I mean,
that's what I was thinking. Isn't their base one that?
Yeah. It's 80, and then plus incentives, I think we're in the 70s.
So maybe what this is fully loaded bottom
normally,
one.
I mean, maybe. Okay.
What I'm saying is like it doesn't have the weaker battery. Maybe it has a full battery.
Like fully loaded, it's 80.
Exactly. Maybe it does 400 worth of range or something, or 350 or whatever the number is. They didn't come out with any of that stuff, but they're saying they're going to compete in that market. However, if they're going to compete in that market, doesn't your price point have to be within some type of like standard deviation of those other ones? You can't say, well, I'm going to compete with a Honda Accord because it's a mid-size sedan, and that thing costs thing costs $45,000, but mine costs $100,000. That's not really competing.
I do think they're just way off, and they don't know. I mean, it's weird just for me even thinking that Porsche is going to do something like this. Like, why would you need a smaller?
Well, I think they see the meat on the bone. They've seen how well the Model 3 is doing. Audi's making an A4. These are sister companies.
Yeah, I guess I see that point now where you could just go, I like what you're doing there, Audi and Porsche.
That's exactly what they did with the Taycan and the e-tron
and
thing that they have.
Enough when you look at the inside and stuff like that. So there's still the Porsche. Audi
I just think it's a little strange that I agree with you that they're considering that, but I like the idea that they're considering that. However, I think because they're Porsche, I don't think this is a cross-shoppable item, because when you're cross-shopping something, I think price is part of that cross-shopping. It has to be somewhat close. And I would even give a barrier of at least 10 grand. If it's not within 10 grand, you're not in the same class.
I just had the thought, do you think that Porsche thinks the Taycan and the baby Taycan, whatever you're going to call it, I don't know if they named it,
they're just talking that they're going to do this.
Are going to be exactly how the Cayenne and Macan were for Porsche as far as money makers.
I think they're just looking at this like we've talked about it and beat on it. They've spent a lot of money in the electrification of the factory they built to build cars. So they're probably looking at as many of these damn things that we can pump out of here. That's what we're going to do. We're going to build as much electric crap as we can to pay for this place, because they are all about getting their money back.
And if they have a small one, it's probably going to be about the same size as the Macan, which means, guess what? All that stuff fits in there. And then,
But I mean, there's a lot of people who want sedans that don't want an SUV or don't want that.
Which is a new market for. It's not a new market, but it just is something different. I wouldn't go to Porsche for. I guess.
If this and to be fair, this isn't Porsche saying that this is 80,000. This is just the reporting network. It said that likely to be in that price range. So okay, so it is in that price range. Let's say you get $10,000 off. Okay, so then you're at 70. That's still, in my opinion, Audi hasn't made an announcement how much that e-tron A4 is going to cost, but I would imagine
it's less.
It has to be less than
at least
that.
base. Yeah, I would say it's probably going to be like maybe.
But to be fair, I'm not a new shop buyer in cars. But to be fair, a fully loaded Camry costs what, $55,000 now.
Yeah, I think
so.
In the range, yeah.
Maybe a fully loaded Model 3 does cost close to 80. I don't know.
Maybe we're just off, but yeah, that's true.
But I would think even a fully loaded after incentives, a Model 3, you could probably be walking out the door at 65, 70,000, maybe at the most. So maybe this is close. Maybe this is close.
And then you add a little Porsche luxury tax on top.
Yeah, yeah, because Porsche, right? Will it sell? Time will tell.
Probably. Why not?
I don't imagine them making so many of them where there's going to be leftovers.
You know where this makes sense? This makes sense more in Europe, like even more than the Taycan, because you have small spaces.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's be real. The Taycan's a pretty big car. As far as not space inside, because we've been in them, but as actually its footprint exterior wise, it's a pretty large car. And that was what they were saying about this. Is it's supposed to be a smaller version of that for more maneuverability. So yeah, maybe in the EU, this is where this thing does damage, I guess. And maybe it's less over there than it is here. I don't know. Who knows? Pick
one of those up, 992 GT3, and you're set.
Yeah, right? You'd be good to go with either one. Who knows? We'll see what happens, right? Next vehicle on the docket, 992 GT3 RS. This isn't something new. Everybody's been seeing spy shots on this. But I think what is new is the most recent video and spy shots of this. This hasn't been talked about, is that rear wing is active. So
ooh, Bugatti action.
Yeah, like, so it is like rear braking, like under load. So my question is,
DRS.
Is this just another thing it can break eventually?
100%.
And it's going to be a pain in the ass, and everybody's going to want to go buy a fixed. They're going to end up taking their swan neck off anyways and buying a fixed one. And because it fails, and I'm speaking from experience because a lot of the I have two cars that have active Aero.
He's speaking from experience recently. He's still wounded right now. Yeah. He's like, but yeah. So
yeah. So if you don't know, on the 996 turbos, the active Aero on that is hydraulically assisted with hydraulic fluid. It tends to leak. The seals leak. And
even though it's a fully sealed type system, it's not there's no type of reservoir. What would make sense? Like, I guess it kind of would make sense, but then it kind of doesn't, because they want it compact and light and all, and changeable. And
that's just in 05, 04. That's what they used. That they thought that was the best thing to do, so that's what they went with. Now the upgrade for that is an electronic piece. It does the exact same thing, so there is no leakage, and the mechanism is supposedly not supposed to fail.
Until it overheats.
Yeah, who knows? I have friends that have it. And it's not cheap. I mean, it's like $1,500 to do, which isn't a lot of money, but it's kind of one of those things where it's a weak point on the car that you have to fix. So what I'm getting at is maybe this will fail at some point, but obviously that's down the road.
Before it does, it's going to set crazy Nürburgring lap times.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what it's going to do. If we're so fast with a regular GT3 and it's got a regular old gooseneck wing, you know.
So I think more people now, again, another trick out of the Andy's card tricks in the GT department is everybody was whining about this GT inspired RSR wing. Why is it so big? Why is it all this? And now maybe it's active. Now people are taking their minds off of how large the wing is, of saying like, wow, that thing's active. It's doing something now.
So is it just increased and decreased downforce as far as the pitch of it, or is it yaw?
There is no information on it, my friend. It is more just video of look at this shit. It's happening right now. So
that's cool.
And this could also be a smoke and mirrors thing. This could also, the car could come out with a fixed wing.
Somebody in the back with like a line, just like making it move.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying maybe there's something they're just testing for them.
That's true.
So who knows? What are your thoughts on that though? Does this something?
Well, they've done it in the turbos. They have the active Aero that they've used, and it's usable.
On turboless. I mean,
they haven't
really used an air brake though. This is kind of the first time.
And I wonder if they did it just for like longevity, like you said, kind of like I'm taking because most of that. I mean, GT3, GT3 RS, you're going to the track. Don't want to be on track with something that, I mean, there's always something that could break, but that's just one more thing that maybe.
My thought process on it is, I think they're doing this in a way of, yes, I think it'll help the car, but I think this is one of those gee whiz gadgets, in my opinion, because I think the motor's tapped out. And they're kind of doing the card shuffle of saying, like, you know, you do the shell game where you're moving shells around, and you're just like, hey, look at this, it's different, it's different, it's different. So they're doing all these other things to the car instead of, well, there are people who are like, well, it's still a 4-liter that's putting out 500 horsepower. Yeah. Yes, it is faster than the other car because you've changed suspension components. Yes, you've changed the Aero. Yes, you've done this. But the core of what it is producing the same amount of power as the other car. And I feel like they're putting all of this other things on this car, just kind of like they did to the 992 GT3 it came out. It's phenomenal, don't get me wrong. But I think it's they're fine-tuning the chassis more now because they know the motor's tapped. And that's my opinion, where there's like, all right, let's make this thing crazy light. Let's make it, we need to put double wishbones in this. We got to do this. Put active Aero here. Do this, all this, because we can't do anything with the motor. That's done.
Something else they're doing, and it may be because they're working. So they have a majority, like it's Manti is Porsche right now. They just finalized that. Like you can officially buy the Manti kits, and you get warranted.
Yeah.
So you don't break any of that type of stuff. So I'm sure they've been working on this stuff for a while. And, I mean, obviously it's faster, the same amount of horsepower. They're doing something right.
Yeah. No, I'm not complaining about it. But I think it's more of that where, okay, we're tapped on the motor. We got to put our focus somewhere else. R&D's got to be somewhere else on the car. We got to make it faster, track faster, make it lighter, all of those things. So, yeah, I would not, where I'm going with that is I wouldn't be surprised if we're getting towards the end here as far as where that motor's at.
Yeah.
Because,
I mean, the wing probably runs off the hybrid motor anyways, so that's right.
Yeah. I just meant as far as the NA itself.
Yeah. I mean, you would have.
I don't know how much longer it's going to last. Like I said in prior episodes, I think it's going to be a hybrid with an NA motor. We might drop it back down to like a 3 something.
If SharkWorks can punch something out to a 4.1, 4.3, I mean, you don't think Porsche thinks that's possible? Or do you think it's not possible for?
I think
the life.
You're looking at a very boutique company, and you're comparing a massive company.
I am.
to that.
Yeah, I guess numbers games.
There's a prime example. .1 2014 991.1s. They were grenading because of the internals, and it wasn't getting oiled properly because it was a 3.8, and then it just wasn't getting proper oil and all that kind of journaling and all that stuff. Can you imagine if they punch something out to 4.1 and now you got to do recalls on all those 4.1s? That's loss of money for them. So they look at it, they have to be risk averse when it comes to that. It's the same reason why we make fun of people that keep stuff factory ride height. They have to release that car that way because there are people who drive like that and drive up on the curb and do all these other stupid shit with their cars. So they have to plan for that. SharkWorks doesn't have to plan for that because their people that are coming to them are already enthusiasts, so they get it. So if they come to them and the tolerances are that sharp and they're like, okay, what's the usage here? And I'm not saying what's the lifespan on. Does anybody know? Like, there's so few of SharkWorks cars punched out that way. I'd be willing to say there's probably less than 30 or 40 of them in the world that punched out like that. And how often are these people beating on their cars? One thing. And then next question is longevity. Like, how long are they lasting before a motor needs to be rebuilt? No one has the answer to that.
All good questions.
So I think Porsche's in a situation where they're like, look, 4 liters is as reliable as we can make this thing. Yes, we could probably go a little bit more, but if you're already at 4, like, okay, what's the big deal if you go to 4.1? Really? 4.2? Okay.
I don't know. I just figured maybe. I mean, I know that I was saying possibility is there, but maybe not reliability.
Yeah, because that's what they're thinking about. Yeah. Like the whole reason I mean, you think about even the 996 GT3 moving all the way forward with the Metzger, even with the blocks, after they got the 991s dialed in and figured it out and put the new blocks in them. The whole point of a lot of these GT3s is you can hammer them at track and drive them home. That's part of what their bread and butter is supposed to be. If they take away that element and take that risk factor and punch this thing out way too much further, and they start grenading, imagine that bad press that comes around. It's like, these things aren't reliable. They're like Lamborghinis now. They like grenade all the time. Like, why would anybody buy one of these things? The whole reason why people buy Porsches is because they're supposed to be reliable. They're supposed to be robust. It's the minor things that you need to do upkeep on, not the major things. And I think their engineering department's probably in tune with that, and that's why they're staying away from that. Because otherwise, why didn't they punch this one out then?
Well, that's a good question.
I think that's the reason.
It's for dot two.
I think that's the reason.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's that.
So active Aero could be, maybe.
Yeah,
we don't know.
That's just the newest thing about it. It still looks pretty rad. I know there's mixed feelings with it as it going down the road. People are like, wow, it's got like an RSR wing, but it's not.
It's a big wing.
Yeah, it's huge.
Or is it?
But to be fair, I think every iteration of the GT3 RS was even that way, right? Even go all the way back to even the 996 GT3 RS that we didn't get, but the Euro version of that wing, that was a huge wing where they were like, that they're putting that on a Porsche? Holy crap. And that's fixed? Look at that thing. That's massive. And then just look at the growth pattern from 997. You look at those are massive wings on the RSs, and you're like, holy crap, even from the dot 1 to the dot 2, like, that's a big leap, because then they went from, like, they put uprights on it.
Yep. And those uprights are started attaching just directly to the chassis, because that's how much downforce those big wings were.
Exactly. You know? So you just look at the progression. You could just literally do it by photo, and it's no surprise that we're here. Who knows what the future may hold? This thing's going to be
just giant. 10, one big wing.
10 feet in the air or something. But we're probably at max wing, I would think, right now. I mean, before it gets until
the
more,
car gets bigger.
Yeah, until it gets any more ridiculous. But let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back with a couple of little interesting things that have going on in the Porsche world as far as auctions and buying and stuff like that.
Let's do it.
Thank you guys listening to PCar Talk so much. We appreciate you guys so much. I can't say that enough. Everything we're doing is trying to bring the community closer together. We definitely appreciate that. Also, when you go onto YouTube, if you could subscribe, maybe pass it along, make a comment. We really appreciate that. Now back to the show. All right, we're back. So James Dean Transaxle sells for $382,000 on Bring a Trailer. Wow.
Yep.
That's all I can really say.
Is it going into Beck Spider? Is that what we're doing?
I don't know what it's in, but it was bought by Zach Baggins, which is a documentary filmmaker. Apparently, there's a lot of money in documentary film, huh? So
maybe he did it right.
This guy's cash money, homie. Anyways, first of all, to be fair, 550 Spiders are rare to begin with, right?
Tons.
So I think any transaxle out of any of those cars would be expensive. Obviously, then you put the James Dean tax on top of this thing. Then it makes a little bit more sense.
Do you think that's actually too low in today's market? I mean, because that's pretty rare.
It is a super rare piece, but here's my thought process on this. This is just going to be a display item, right? At least in my mind. I doubt this is going in a car.
I mean, you never know. Rod Emmerich could do miracles.
Yeah, but what would you...
Yeah, that's true.
It would only be... So then you would what? Even if he has a Spider, let's put it this way. Okay. Even if he has a 550, let's just pretend. So then what? He's going to put this transaxle into his Spider or another one, and then do what with that? Just keep it on the shelf?
Never see it, never know about it, I guess. But
and then tell people that's what's in that car, and then save the other one for that car? Maybe that's a possibility. I'm not saying that's not impossible for somebody to do. However, would you risk that item
One, no, because it's special. And
Exactly.
then two, I mean, it probably needs an amount of work that it would make it not the same anymore at all.
Maybe it is functional. Let's just pretend that it is. I think this is going to be more of kind of a flex piece where you put plexi around it, you build some type of James Dean figurine or something in it, or behind it, or plaque, put it in your house, or maybe a museum somewhere, and you have it on display, and he maybe puts it on loan to the Porsche Museum, or puts it on loan here for it to be displayed. I think this is just an investment piece at the end of the day.
Good candidate for the BCLA or Peterson.
Yeah, I think this is, obviously it carries weight. He paid a certain amount for it. It's very public what he paid for it because it was an auction form. But who knows? Maybe he sells this thing in 10 years for double that, because there's another Porsche person out there who's got to have it as a display piece. Or maybe he is a James Dean nut because he is a film person. James Dean did film. Maybe this guy likes Porsches. Who knows where the inner twangle of this is?
Inner twangle.
Yeah, I'd have no idea. But do you feel that's a lot of money, or do you feel that it's undervalued at that point?
I didn't really know that this existed still. I didn't know any of that was. I didn't know they kept anything. To be honest, I mean, I knew that the wreck happened, but I didn't know anything was salvaged.
Car was pretty mangled, but I think they kept everything what they could. I think from it.
I do think. I just feel like everything's kind of going nuts. Just the market, every market seems to be up, and I feel like a piece that's never ever can be replicated, or you would. I mean, again, I feel like that's kind of low.
Yeah. Yeah, because this is a one of one. There'll never be another one. I think
the
it
story
is.
behind it. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Is like the person that owned it, and then the story behind,
And that's probably what Zach was thinking when he bought this and bid on it. He was thinking, okay, this is an opportunity to own multiple pieces of history, right? So it's not just one. If you really think of this in dimensionally speaking, this is film history in the sense of because it's James Dean. This is Porsche history because it's a Porsche part. Those two worlds cross over here, so now it's got a double whammy as opposed to being, well, it's just motorsport. It's hard to say, it's hard to compare what this is because it's not like we just see transaxles go up for sale for 550 Spiders on a regular basis to say, okay, this is where the bar is. This is, it went 200 above that or 80 above that. There's no way to compare that. I would think from a rarity standpoint, I thought it probably hit $500,000 is what I thought. So maybe it's a little low, but what the hell do I know, to be honest with you? I mean,
there's probably him and like two other people bidding on this because one, I mean,
well, who knows that dollar figure? I mean, there probably was probably more than a couple guys bidding on this thing. I think there was probably at least 5 to 10 because to drive it that high, you're not going to just have two dudes just battle it forever because this thing's they battled this thing all the way up from $100,000, like just the two of them dueled it out like nonstop.
380.
Yeah, like 105, 106, 107, 108. Like what, you know what I mean? It's so. No, I think it's a rare piece. I think it's a unique piece.
Would you have bid on this piece?
No, because I don't find I'm the way my brain works.
It's not usable, so you don't care about it.
Yeah, no, I care about it, but I'm just kind of a dollars and cents guy. Like maybe, and that's the engineering side of me instead of the artist side of me, because I think you have to have an art-sided mind to understand and display this piece. Because I think that's what's going to happen with this.
Yeah, like a gallery.
Exactly, where it is beautiful and it has history in that, so that makes it art in itself. But I think for me, I'm more of kind of a function. I'd rather spend $380,000 on a whole car that was rare, where I could actually go drive it or do something with it instead of just looking at it. I think this goes back to like collection as opposed to performance and usability.
Yeah, it probably goes. That piece is probably going to Hollywood Hills home. It's a little small gallery inside and sits in the middle,
like some major flex somewhere where people can see it. And if you have the means, and I guess I'm not wealthy enough to be even thinking about buying something at that level. So it doesn't even matter to me. My brain doesn't even switch on for shit like that, where I'm hunting $100,000 GT3s. This guy's buying transaxles for $400,000. Like I'm a peasant in his world. So
he spent like $3.
Exactly. So it just doesn't. Cool. Our brains don't act the same way. My lizard brain's saying, I want speed, I want power. He's like, I want to display something. I want this because I already have all speed and power in my garage. I have a Carrera GT probably. I have this, I have that. So if I was at that level, maybe my brain would switch off to something else where I was on that level where I had all of those things already, and you have attained all of those beautiful cars and you exercise them. Okay, then, yeah, wow me with something else.
Yeah.
Because that's where you're at. Now you don't want another car. You want something like this. But for guys like us that are knuckle draggers, we're out here saying, why did you buy this? You got $380-something thousand. You could have bought an Aero car or something, man. Or you could have did this, or you could have did that.
It's 3 GT3s.
Why did you buy a DP car? Like,
yeah, it's true. Know a guy.
But we're knuckle draggers, so I'd aspire to be that way, but I'm not affluent enough to be up there.
I'm buying Yamato by the barrel.
Yeah. Shit, you'd probably be buying stuff. It doesn't even have a name.
What is that?
You're like, I don't even.
Westbourne doesn't even know about this yet.
Don't even know. Don't even know what that's called. Staying on the theme of auction type of stuff. So, 917 cars, chassis number 26 is coming up for auction in August. So there were hero cars in the movie Le Mans, if you're not familiar, and this is one of the hero cars. It was a legitimate 917. There was legitimate 917s used in that movie. So it's expected to go between 16 and 19 million. Just let that resonate for a minute. 16 to 19 million. Yes, there are Ferrari GTOs that have gone for way more and all this other stuff. Yep. However, this is a big number on this car. So I'm going to rewind the clock a little bit to kind of put this in perspective. If you're listening to this, you were probably alive during this time frame. How old you are is yet to be determined. We don't know you, so who knows? Anyways, in 2000, chassis number 22 was sold at auction for $1.3 million. That car, 2 years later, was ascertained by Jerry Seinfeld for an undisclosed amount, but he owns chassis number 22. In a 2 year span, maybe he paid an extra $1 million for it. So let's say he's in, we're guessing at 2.3. So that's in 2002. 19 years later, this car has gone up almost 15 times that price. That's pretty impressive.
Almost $1 million a year.
And that was in a recession because remember in 07, 08, we were in a recession. So it still climbed.
Thanks, assets.
So it's a rare car. It was the third car used in that movie.
So this is Jerry's car, or was Jerry's car, or that you're just giving reference to?
No, I'm just giving.
Okay.
He owns chassis number 22. The car it's going for auction is chassis number 26.
Okay.
So these are separate cars.
So you think he's gonna collect this one too, or doesn't care?
No, what's the point? Like, you don't need them all. I mean, I know he's got the funds for it, but
just most of them.
Yeah. Why do you need? If he has chassis number 22, you don't need chassis number 26 also.
Yeah, that's true. Why do you want higher numbers?
Especially, I'm sure in his mind, he is a very good businessman as well. If he did pay $2 million or less for his car, why in the hell would he pay 16 to 19 for one when he already has one?
Or let this one sell for 16 and 19 and then put his up.
Yeah, and that's entirely possible what he would do. But again, he doesn't need the money. So like, what's 19 million to him means nothing. Him being worth like $1 billion, what does that matter? I think having the car is more important to him than anything. And again, I don't know him well enough to know whether he'd want another one, but it wouldn't make sense. I'm just thinking from him in a dollar standpoint. I don't think he would see value in paying 19 million for another one if that's that final hammer on it when he already has one for way less than that. Because I'm sure that's in his mind. I would be doing that regardless of how many millions I had. I'd be like, wait a minute. So 19 years ago, I paid $2 million for one, and now I'm going to go buy one for 16 to 19? Hell to the no. I don't care if I had $1 billion. Not happening. Because he just looks at it as, okay, somebody's going to win on me. It's a competitive thing. You don't want somebody to win on you. That's somebody's winning. Because they're taking your money. But it's kind of an interesting thing. I mean, do you think that 917s are worth that?
I don't know. I mean, that one doesn't have any race history. It's just got the movie history, right? The film history.
I mean, it didn't get into the depths with what, like, if it
I don't think
won,
they did.
but
I don't think they had. I don't think any of the cars they used had actual
no.
race history.
But,
So,
I mean, it's still a real 917.
Yeah, and it was in a film.
Yeah. One of the most popular films of all time.
Well, Steve McQueen was there.
So
More movie and film stuff.
But I'm just thinking of, like, how this thing is matured over that time frame. Because you think about how old these cars are, right? From the 70s. Like, in the 80s and all, like, you could buy these things for nothing, really, because nobody really wanted them. Just look how long it's taken this thing to really turn the corner. But once it did turn the corner, it's like skyrocketed. Because think about pre-2000, what this car was worth. Not that much, and it was still 30 years old. That's
true. That's because the people that care about it now care about it because you can't get them. The vintage thing is finally there.
Yeah, but I mean, they were vintage even in the 90s. That was a vintage car then.
But I don't think as many people cared about that. I think that type of thing is more just sought after these days. Well, the stories and everything else behind the car.
Yeah, I know it's a different time. I agree with that, but why is that though? Because it's still an old car. Like, for example, okay, a car. Let's take it like a 1990 something. That's still super like a GT1. Okay, that's a 1990 race car. Very, very low production. That's still coveted this day, and if you do the timeline on it, it was in the 90s. That's kind of what the 917 was. Like what the GT1 currently is as far as the timeline, as far as years go. But the 917 really wasn't that coveted, but the GT1 is. So maybe it's just a demographic of people now that's seeing it, because the GT1 is still valuable. I mean, it's millions.
I mean, it may eventually follow the same trajectory, but it's true. I think it's another. It's that much more rare. It's that much older. I don't know that it even. I mean, that's a lot of money. 15 to 19 million on a car that has no race provenance, has no. I mean, besides it being a real 917, which that's huge though. There's not many of those.
Yeah, it's huge.
Outside of the Porsche Museum.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean,
is it the Gulf? Is it the Gulf colors? I don't remember.
Yeah.
I think okay. So they used
because they used 3 of them in that movie. They were all Gulf cars. So they, this
most iconic livery ever.
Yeah. And the cool story behind this, actually, the guy who currently owns it, when he had the car, had been modified and chopped up and all this other stuff. So what it was, they had taken the 917 and they made it the 917 Spider. So whoever had it, like after or before him, I should say, in the 80s, they chopped it.
Like the Can-Am car.
That's exactly what they did to it. So once he found out, actually, this was chassis number 26, he spent a fortune bringing it back to its old glory and putting it back the way that it was to sell it as a true 917.
I wonder why you would even think about making. I mean, the Can-Am cars are cool.
It was like 84 when they did that. Like, again, that just goes back to showing you, like, no one gave a shit about these things. That's what people did with old speedsters, too. Like, you hear those stories all the time where, I mean, I think the story behind that Gamoon car that Rod Emery did, that car was a convertible. Like, they chopped that thing up originally. Not them personally, but the people who owned it before. And when they found that car, that's what people did with all these Porsches back then, because you have all these club racers and you have SCCA and all this other shit. And it's no different in our generation. For example, tons and tons of 964s went through that, and G-bodies went through that, where people got them and nobody gave a shit about them. And they took special cars and they raced them and beat them up and modified them. And I think of For Sale the other day on Racing Junk, there's a RS America on there, but it's a 993 bodied race car, but it's a RS America VIN, and they're like, well, we still have all the fenders and all the other stuff from the other car that goes back onto it, but this raced in a club series this way. So it's still even happening modernly, where people don't respect what those cars were. They're like, who gives a shit? Like, let's go racing.
What was I going for if you're not hunting it down?
I don't know.
You don't remember?
Why?
I just wondered.
Yeah, it's not a car you're going to be able to street, so don't even think about trying to buy it.
I was just curious.
Yeah. It's not cheap, but it's not a lot either. It's I think they want like 65, 70 for it, something like that. But it's going to take you another 60, if not more, to make it an RS America again, even with all the parts, because it's full caged, like welded in. It's a full-on race car, and you got to doctor that all back out of the car, which is not cheap.
Nope.
So it's almost kind of better off saying, like, buy a better car.
Just buy an RS America at that point.
Exactly. Just buy a better car. But yeah, I just think it's interesting over time how we continue to do that to certain cars. But to be fair to everybody who is doing that to those cars, it's a time and place thing. Those cars aren't worth shit at that time. And those cars are in those people's possession. So who's to say to crystal ball and magic voodoo to say in 30 years this car's going to be worth $16 million, just hang on to it and don't mess with it. And they're like, okay, well, that's great. I'm 60, so I'm going to be dead in 30 years, so that's not going to really work out for me. I want to go racing now. Let's chop it up.
Yeah, the whole now thing. It's true.
Same thing with all those cars. I get it. And, you know, transversely in different worlds, other than, you know, we keep our ear to the pavement. We're car people in general. The same thing has happened in the JDM market with drift cars. You used to be able to buy a 240XX for nothing. Now, even clapped out shells, whatever, because there's so many of them got gobbled up by these drift kids that have drifted all these things, you're paying premium on it now. There's an a 240 tax now, that like a Porsche tax. That's a real thing. Because I've looked. Because I still like those cars, and I'd like to go hoon around still. But now that's not an affordable thing anymore. I mean, to go buy a shell, you're still looking at like 10 to 15 with nothing in it.
Yep.
You used to be buy a full car for like 6.
And that's R20 swapped.
But that's not a thing anymore. I don't know, some people that are listening were probably talking Chinese, but it's all. I'm just doing comparison. It happens in every world where no matter what car person or affiliation you're with or bias you have, they get gobbled up, and next thing you know, that the supply is dried up. So it's supply and demand. Everybody wants one, and there isn't anymore. So now all of the prices go up, and pretty much everybody gets the memo, and they get the TPS report or whatever, and everybody's saying, hey, guess what? You got a 240? You know how much that thing's worth now? Oh, hey, you got a 964? Guess what? You know how much that thing's worth now? Yep. And that's the talk of the town. They're like, oh, I thought this thing was worth 30 grand. Nope, 75 all day minimum. Okay, cool. And now everybody gets the memo and price. That's the bar now.
So do you think that somebody grabs this 917 and goes to the Monterey Historics for Car Week, or do you think they actually, you know, put it on track? Or
I hope so. If you got the stones to do it, I mean, if you're spending that kind of money, I hope you're not. I'm sure they're not spending their last million buying this thing. I'm sure who's ever. I mean, you do the X factor like we talked about before. What you should be doing, if you're buying a $20 million car, you're probably worth like $500 million. So yeah, I would go race it if I was in that position. If I bought that thing, I'd be racing it at Goodwood. I'd be racing it everywhere I could. I'd be making this thing my bitch. If I'm spending $19 million, you better believe it. I don't think if I get a plate on that thing, I'm taking that thing to Publix.
Dealer plate.
Damn right. It's going down the road. You know, damn that. It's going to wear the patina all over it. I'm going to get my money's worth. And then maybe you might get worth more because you've been using it. It's not sitting in some showroom decaying somewhere. But I don't have anything else for any.
Definitely limit you on the groceries. I mean, like, oh, well.
Just energy drinks, bro.
But bang energy drink livery.
Just energy drinks and Publix deli sandwiches, bro. That's it.
Pops up, man. That's where it's at.
That's all you need.
If you don't know about them, you should.
Yeah.
Not a sponsor. Should be a sponsor.
Yeah. But I don't have anything else. Do you have anything?
I don't. I'm out.
All right. Well, thank you guys. We love you guys so much. Don't forget to join the Patreon if you're interested. Get on that waiting list for the PCar Club. Go bid on the Safari if you want a badass car, and actually pay for something that's rad instead of $90,000 for a 100,000-mile SC. Go get a 3.0 Carrera. Yes, you might have to pay 6 figures for it, but it'll at least be worth that too when you sell it.
It's true.
All right. See ya.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of PCar Talk. Connect with us on Instagram at PCar Talk or online at PCarTalk.com.